What's up, y'all? This is Jordan. You're watching The Communist Carpenter, and this is going to be kind of a part 2 to my last video, in which I addressed a comment made by Tristan Stefanetti. I hope I'm saying the last name correctly, I don't remember. But I touched on planned obsolescence and why shit in capitalism, things that have been produced, are typically shit. So, have you ever heard an old person say, oh, back in my day, they made things right and made things to last, and shit like that? Well, they're fucking right, Typically when a fucking boomer says some shit, oh, back in my day, people were tough and this and that, it's really just a way to say, oh, back in my day, people didn't know how to express their feelings because it wasn't socially acceptable, or, oh, back in my day, you had to work hard to get what you want, which is another fucking way of saying back in my day, people actually made more money in comparison to how much they worked and were actually able to afford like a house and be able to raise a family on a minimum wage job, which nowadays you absolutely cannot. So I'm going to touch exactly on what planned obsolescence is and how and why it benefits capitalists. So planned obsolescence is the idea that if you make something that will break eventually, and I don't mean like 10 years down the line, I mean like if you make a drill, for example. My boss had these really nice Bosch drills, and if you're in construction at all, you know that Bosch is a pretty high, it's one of the higher end companies. I have a bunch of shit made by Craftsman, which is, beginner level shit. It's not the best quality equipment, but it'll get the job done. Bosch, for example, one of their drills is like in the hundreds, $150, maybe $200 for a drill, plus the batteries and a battery charger, maybe upwards of $250 to $300. I got two batteries, a charger, and 2 drills for $100 made by Craftsman, just to give you a better sense. And I think my boss got maybe 2 years out of the Bosch drills that he bought, and then they broke. They just stopped working, shit started falling apart on them, and this is that condition is made by planned obsolescence. They made these drills so that they would break after a certain amount of usage. This is the first time that ever happened was back in the day, in the early 1900s, I believe. A large group of light bulb manufacturers, they had light bulbs that would last up to 25,000 hours. If you have a light bulb today, chances are it lasts between 10 and 12,000 hours. Well, back in the day, they made them to last up to 25,000 hours. Now, why did they stop making them like that? Well, the reason is because people weren't buying as many light bulbs. It affected these light bulb manufacturers' profits. So they made a large organization that would, regulate the manufacturing of light bulbs across a certain amount of companies. Of course, this organization was run by the people who manufactured light bulbs, at least the larger corporations. So if any smaller light bulb manufacturer would make really high-end, better light bulbs for cheaper than what these larger manufacturers were allowing, then this organization that they made would basically stop the manufacture of these kinds of light bulbs that were that much better in order to sell more. So they brought the requirement down to about 10,000 hours of light. And obviously people need light, so they were making a lot more money selling these light bulbs that lasted a shorter amount of time. Other examples of planned obsolescence are like your iPhone. Your iPhone is designed that after the newest iPhone comes out, for updates, you have to update your phone every now and then. If you have an older model and you update your phone, the battery will not last as long, and they don't make batteries replaceable on iPhones. You just have to get a whole new phone. So if your battery's fucked, you have to get a whole fucking brand new phone. Your phone starts operating more slowly. It doesn't work as efficiently, and the cables that you use to charge your iPhone break so often they it starts getting wiggly at the end, and it just starts falling apart after like maybe 6 to 8 months of use, and then you have to get a new one. The reason they make those things that way is so that you have to invest and buy new shit to keep up their ability to sell things to you, the consumer. They use shittier quality products. They produce shittier quality products with shittier materials in a specific way to ensure that the thing that you buy will break after a certain amount of time so that they can continue selling products to you. There's another part of planned obsolescence that is called perceived obsolescence. Cars, for example, you got the new 2020, whatever the fuck, with this and that and this and that. And if you don't have it, then whatever you have now is just a piece of shit. And you can get ridiculed because of it. And we encourage, through social media, through TV, through movies, we encourage people to have new, nice shit. There's no merit given towards people who have things that last a long time. There's no merit given to people that make things work for a really fucking long time. For example, Cuba. I use Cuba as an example a lot because they are a socialist country, and they're very poor because of the embargoes that the United States has placed on it. Now, because of the embargo, they haven't been able to get any new vehicles in Cuba since the 50s. So if you go to Cuba, you're going to see a fuck ton of really old cars from the 1950s. And these cars look brand new, and they're still running because people have to make them work. They don't always work the best, but they have to make them work because it's what they have. People learned how to change out parts using parts from other appliances like washing machines and refrigerators, and taking out motors from things like fucking lawn mowers and shit like that, making it work with their vehicle. A lot of people have changed their cars' engines to be able to run on diesel fuel instead of gasoline because they need to make it work, and they still have cars there. They have cars that run perfectly well. Of course, every now and then you'll fucking see a dude on the side of the road working on his vehicle because it's from the 50s, man. Like, that shit's old. It's 70 years old, but it still fucking runs. Gets you where you need to go, drives you safely, brakes work, lights work. People learn how to make that shit work. Now, that's a poor little socialist country that doesn't get shit from any other country except a select few that have decided to continue doing business with Cuba, even though it means they won't be able to do business with the United States. Because that's what an embargo is. If you do business with this country that we don't like, you're not going to do business with us, the world's largest economic superpower, the richest country in the world. That's why a lot of people can't do business with Cuba, because it'll ruin their fucking economies. Anyways, so back to perceived obsolescence. Another example is the iPhone. Again, if you don't have the newest, latest iPhone, if you don't upgrade your iPhone every year, then you're ridiculed for having the same fucking iPhone that people had 3 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Why is that a bad thing? It's because we've indoctrinated people into believing that unless they have this brand new shit, then they're just trashy, or they're cheap, or they just don't like nice things. I like nice things, but more so, I want something that's going to last me a long time. And under capitalism, the incentive to produce goods that will break down after a certain amount of time is too great to avoid this kind of manipulation of the market. So that is what planned obsolescence is, and it is inherent in a capitalist society. You can't really have a capitalist society without having that planned obsolescence and perceived obsolescence anymore. Now, in a socialist or communist society, the mode of production is not to, or the reason for producing things is not to exchange them. In a capitalist economy, we produce things for exchange. The dude growing apples grows as many apples as he can, so he can sell as many as he can, so he can make as much money as he can to build his business, to buy nice things for himself and shit like that. In a socialist economy or a communist economy, people would make the goal of production would be to meet the needs of the people. This is how many people wanted apples last year, so we need to make this many, maybe plus a little bit extra. This is how many people needed a new car last year, so this is how many we're gonna make, and we're gonna make them as damn good as we fucking can so that they last as long as possible, so that we don't have to keep using up resources to create new products when we have the resources to make good, long-lasting, quality products and make them last as long as possible so that we can use our resources for other things instead. So that is planned obsolescence and perceived obsolescence, and how it is inherent in the capitalist system, and how a socialist model would be more appropriate for our planet, which has finite resources. You can't keep making shit on a planet that has limited resources, but the model of capitalism is infinite, never-ending growth. You must always make more money than last year. You must always produce more than last year, or else you are a failure. You are failing if you don't do those things. And that is going to destroy the planet eventually, creating a hollow shell of its former self. Just some things to think about. Ask that question to yourself. Why do we make things? We certainly don't make things because people need them. We make things to sell them. If a supermarket makes a loaf of bread and puts it on the shelf and they don't sell it, it's just going to rot. They won't give it away to people. At least most large supermarkets won't, like Walmart or Target, Harris Teeter, or whatever the fuck local supermarket you have in your area. They'll let it rot on the shelves instead of giving it to somebody who needs it, because you can't make money from giving it to someone who needs it. So it doesn't meet the reason for its production. Again, in a socialist economy, all that food would be given to people who need it, because the purpose of producing things is to meet the needs of the people, is to meet the needs of the population of whatever country the government is governing. So that's it, everyone. That's my video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them down below. In solidarity, y'all. See ya.